The UK police are changing their tactics when it comes to catching online dealers.
It's as easy as shopping on any online store. Instead of back alley pickups, just add to cart.
Last month, the police in the south east of England convicted 4 men who were accused of running an online dealing operation called Social Farmer. They were collectively sentenced to 47 years in prison. This is one of them getting raided here.
Police! Police! Oh, police yourself!
This is not a video about individual people accused of dealing. This is a video about the changing way in which the police are trying to tackle these cases. There was nothing particularly unique about the targets in this case. Like many other major online drug vendors, they had a well-established presence on the darknet and also had started supplying through Telegram in a bid to reach more customers. What did catch my eye was the fact that the British police employed the services of a San Francisco-based blockchain intelligence company called TRM Labs to help them with the technological side of this investigation.
At TRM, we specialize in working with law enforcement to trace and recover those funds.
It's always important to try to be one step ahead of the criminals, and rapid information sharing promotes that goal.
As more and more dealing goes digital, are the British police struggling with this new frontier in the war on drugs? Are they struggling with the technological side of things? What can we learn from the way that they investigated this case? Let's take a closer look. According to the court case which concluded at the end of last month, Social Farmer began operations in 2018, describing themselves as an online pharmacy. Initially on the darknet and later on also through Telegram, they sold counterfeit pharmaceutical drugs like Valium, Xanax, Oxys, etc., over-the-counter medicines, and a range of controlled drugs including heroin, meth, coke, ket, and more. Now, the South East Regional Crime Squad at some point wanted to investigate Social Farmer, so they employed the services of TRM Labs, who are based in San Francisco. The police highly publicized this case, but they didn't actually mention that they had used a consultancy firm in North America to investigate on their behalf. The reason that I know about this is because TRM Labs published a lengthy blog on their website about their involvement in the case. TRM Labs described themselves as a blockchain intelligence company. On their website they say,
"We blend blockchain data with advanced analytics to help financial institutions and governments fight fraud, money laundering, and financial crime."
At TRM Labs, we're turning what once seemed like invisible financial activity into real-time, actionable intelligence. We help law enforcement move faster, act smarter, and disrupt criminal networks before they become larger threats.
So they're essentially like crypto private investigators. But according to their investigation, Social Farmer were incredibly good at what they did. The group built an almost continuous presence across major marketplaces, operating under slight name variations as platforms were shut down or seized. They listed 13 darknet marketplaces that they say Social Farmer operated across. It was alleged in court that they collected a total of £4.3 million in Bitcoin during their time operating. The group's resilience across nearly every major darknet market of the past half a decade allowed it to build a reputation for reliability within these underground communities, while making it significantly harder for the police to disrupt their activities. It's difficult to know exactly how much TRM Labs got paid by the UK authorities to take down Social Farmer, but it is clear that they are receiving a lot of UK taxpayers' money from various government departments. It's a matter of public record, for instance, that they were paid £288,000 by His Majesty's Revenue and Customs in 2024. And last year alone, the Financial Conduct Authority paid them £36,000, the City of London Police paid them £45,000, and the Digital Forensics Unit paid them £20,400. This video is brought to you by Easy Test Kits, quick, reliable and affordable testing kits for all your favourite party prescriptions. These are presumptive testing kits, meaning they can give you a very good indication as to what is in your baggie. To learn more or to pick up, say, a synthetic cannabinoid testing kit, click on the link in the description and use my promo code SESH for a 10% discount. According to the court case, this is how the division of labour within the group worked. Out of the 4 men accused, 3 of them pleaded guilty at an earlier hearing in July last year. That included the main guy that the police said was the boss. He was responsible for overall operations and sourcing products at a wholesale level. Then there was his right-hand man, the operational lieutenant. He was responsible for managing sales, the community management of the online vendor accounts, the Telegram channels, and customer service. Down one role from him within the hierarchy was the person who was described as running the packing house, preparing orders, pressing counterfeit tablets, packaging the orders, and arranging postal shipments across the UK. Those 3 all pleaded guilty to supplying Class A and Class B drugs under the Misuse of Drugs Act, namely the counterfeit pharmaceutical drugs, heroin, meth, coke, and ket. The court heard that a batch of heroin seized from the group was tested and found to contain traces of fentanyl. Now, one of the 4 men pleaded not guilty at the initial court case in July last year, so a trial was set for last month. His role within the network apparently involved supplying pharmaceutical products into the network, the raw materials that were later diluted, rebranded and pressed into the fake branded pills by his colleague in the packing house. On the first day of the trial, this guy, however, changed his mind and pleaded guilty to some of the charges: conspiracy to supply Class A and Class C drugs. That was mainly the counterfeit pharmaceutical products. He was also found guilty of other charges: conspiracy to supply Class A and B drugs, heroin, coke and ket. So he ended up with an alphabet: convictions for supplying Class A, B and C drugs. All 4 men were sentenced. The main guy, who the police said was the boss, got 13 years and 6 months. The guy who ran the digital operation was sentenced to 10 years and 6 months. The guy who ran the packing side of things got 8 years and 3 months. And the guy who originally pleaded not guilty got 15 years. The court heard that not only was the social pharma operation extremely resilient, managing to continue operating during the shutdown of many dark net marketplaces, but they were also at the forefront of new technology when it came to this world. The social pharma operation was known to be resilient because of the collapse of multiple dark net marketplaces could not stop them. They also launched their own Televend vendor shop, enabling direct off-market transactions with customers. First emerging in October 2020, Televend administrators described their service as, quote, a direct deal platform which uses Telegram bots to interface with customers via a shop front inside the app and a Tor-based onion vendor panel for vendors to manage orders and customers, completely automated. Televend's backend was accessible through the dark net, but items could not be purchased there. Instead, the specific vendor's Telegram-hosted shop bot would handle the purchase. An entirely automated system, so the dealers wouldn't even have to take orders. It was, however, shut down in 2021. It's unclear if the closure was an exit scam by the operators or as the result of police activity. By 2025, Social Pharma had embraced a Telegram-based distribution model operating within the Tesseract bot community. But after the raids that year, TRM Labs say they linked years of darknet vendor activity and Telegram communications to the defendants, correlating order volumes with postal data, and followed cryptocurrency payments from darknet customers through to Social Pharma controlled wallets and into cash-out infrastructure. Social Pharma's day had come. The 4 people involved got convicted for a total of 47 years. But is it possible that people like that are simply offering a safer alternative to more traditional legacy models of drug dealing. According to the EU Drugs Agency, the earliest modern online anonymous markets appeared in early 2010, but the first one of true notoriety was Silk Road, which appeared in 2011. It was seized and shut down by the FBI in 2013, but the cat was well and truly out of the bag. A colossal number of Silk Road successors have operated in this space since, making it a huge part of popular culture. And for many people, it's simply seen as a safer way of buying drugs. You don't have to physically meet someone or get into a car or go and meet someone in a dark alley or a pub car park or whatever. That makes getting it online safer from the get-go. I also think that for many drug users, the point where they pick up the drugs is where they're most vulnerable in terms of getting busted by the police as well. So I think that buying it on online marketplaces potentially reduces the risk in that way as well. However, the risk of getting scammed by someone masquerading as a genuine dealer is much bigger online. Online marketplaces allow a customer review model like that of Amazon or eBay. Users can post a star rating and a review of their purchase, and the vendor reputation metrics help to inform other users. Many people argue that that makes it safer because you're less likely to be missold drugs. I guess that happens to a lesser extent with more legacy dealing too, with word of mouth shaping reputations, but not as efficiently. Many vendors on dark net marketplaces have also begun publishing results of their home testing kits or results from lab testing like from 𝘿𝙧 or energy control. This means that if a vendor missolds a product or sells an adulterated product, they would probably receive a surge of negative reviews. People would probably cease buying from them. This creates a hierarchy of vendors in which the most reputable ascend to the top, giving the users some idea of who to trust. It's not an exact science, and vendors are more likely to post results if they are favourable to their marketing aims, but these are guardrails nonetheless. There are darknet forums dedicated to harm reduction. They send out mass warnings about dodgy batches. There's even been an Ask Me Anything session on the darknet with Dominic Milton Trott, the author of the Drug User's Bible, Harm Reduction, Risk Mitigation and Safety. He answered questions about harm reduction on the dark net. It could be argued that the dark net is one of the best places for harm reduction content because that type of content is often censored elsewhere on the internet. Information on there can't be reliably verified, but at least there is a conversation around harm reduction there and it isn't just taken down like it is often on normal social media platforms, for instance. Another inadvertent harm reduction measure of the online model is the time delay between ordering and receiving the drugs. It might be 2 or 3 days, for instance. That acts as a buffer period, encouraging customers to make informed choices and discouraging impulsive drug using and binging. But then again, this is balanced out by the fact that if you use the dark net, you will have access to a much wider range of drugs, which could be destructive for some. But for all the pros and cons, this is undoubtedly the future of drug dealing and is rapidly becoming the main way that people acquire illicit substances. As our society continues to develop new digital technologies and innovations, drug dealing online will continue to flourish in increasingly sophisticated ways. I think that the pandemic was a tipping point. A lot of people bought from the dark net for the first time during those lockdowns and realized just how easy it is. TRM Labs boasted on their website after the convictions. They said, quote, "This case demonstrates how UK investigators are rapidly advancing their capabilities to disrupt cyber-enabled drug trafficking networks operating across dark net markets, encrypted messaging platforms, and cryptocurrency payment channels." For dark net vendors, they rely on platform hopping, pseudonym rotation, and cryptocurrency and anonymization. The message, although is clear, resilience online does not equate to immunity offline. Persistent intelligence-led investigations can and will reach them. I'm not convinced by that. They would say that because they want to drum up more business. They're making a lot of money from this. But it seems to me that the British police are really struggling to catch up in this new frontier in the war on drugs. Is it sustainable for them to keep paying San Francisco blockchain intelligence consultants to do their homework for them? Is that really going to work when you consider that there's thousands of dealers? I guess it's kind of like an old age pensioner asking their grandson to publish a Facebook post on their behalf because they just can't get to grips with the new world around them. It's all a waste of time, of course. Drugs always win, dealers always win. They often have more resources, better logistics, more international connections. Some have incredible business skills. They're often talented at creating these technological solutions, and they're not tied down by rules and processes and regulations like the authorities are. The police might win the odd battle, which they will publicise widely to save face. That's what's happened here. But it's so marginal. When the odd dealer gets busted, many more sprout up in its place. This has been the case in every incarnation of the evolution of drug dealing, from the street corner to the burner phone to the dialer dealer days and into the new digital era. Unless drugs are legalized and the trade is regulated, bringing this activity out of the shadows into a legally and responsibly regulated system which puts public health first, this process will just continue on a loop until the end of time. The authorities will never come close to winning their
total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
If you find these videos useful or interesting, click the bell notification, and I'll see you on the next one.